There is one meal causing more fatty liver disease, heart attacks and strokes, colon conditions and colon disease like polyps than any other meal. And 95% of Americans are eating this meal throughout the year. 61% eat it every single week. And it keeps us and our kids fat, sick, drugged, and addicted, just the way the big food industry wants you to be. This info that I'm about to share can help millions of people trapped by a sick care system, big food, big pharma, and help those to avoid clogged arteries, to avoid failed toxic livers, the increasing incidence of colon cancers and polyps, and finally start dropping the pounds. This video is about the #1 worst meal that ruins more livers, arteries, colons, and waistlines than any other meal. And if you're thinking, I don't eat that bad, I want you to think again, as the stats and the studies I'm gonna show you in just a moment will shock you. Wait until you hear the numbers I'm gonna lay out. Of this meal, there are two major components. The first component of this meal, Americans are eating 3 tablespoons of per day. 8 to 10%, and some stats up to 15% of our total energy intake comes from this one component. The other component, it gets worse. 61% of people are eating every single week. 1 out of 3 people consuming it, which is even worse. It's the darkest side of this component of this meal. They're eating it every single day. So if you believe you are eating well and you have no risk, there are millions of people making this mistake every day. We're gonna reveal the first component. Most people eat it at breakfast to start their day. Now, breakfast is not bad, but this component is. Even if you're skipping breakfast, it's very likely that your friends or your family or your kids, they're taking this in every morning, or it's immediately showing up at the first meal of the day if you're doing some intermittent fasting at lunchtime. And so we are really putting this on our kids. We are training our kids. We are teaching our kids to consume this constantly in their diet. And there's no wonder that the life expectancy, especially here in the United States, has gone down 3 straight years. That means you will live longer than your kids. It's the first time this has ever happened, and it's happened 3 straight years. This is one of the major culprits that so many people are making a mistake on, and honestly, not enough people are giving attention to and pointing it out. So I'll show you what's ruining our livers, colons, arteries, eyesight, and more. And we're gonna show you what to replace it with instead. Now, when we talk about the liver and the toxicity of it and the fattiness of it, let me define exactly what that means and what it means to be a toxic liver. It's when fat builds up in the liver. There's too much fat in the liver. There should be very little, if no, fat in the liver. It's very common. 1 out of 3 people in the world now dealing with this, particularly in people that are diabetic or people that are overweight. And although it might not cause any symptoms, it can lead to significant health-related problems. The liver is the main organ for processing food, nullifying and eliminate toxicity and waste material in the body, hardest working organ in the body. The liver is to contain very little or no fat. If you drink too much alcohol, if you eat too much food, especially this one meal, then your body has to deal with the excess by turning some of that excess and some of that excess energy and calories into fat. This fat is then stored in the liver cells themselves. And wait till you see, literally I pulled out the slides of the tissue of what this food does to the liver tissue itself, let alone the colon. When fat makes up 5 to 10% of the total weight of your liver, you have a fatty liver. 5 to 10%. Miraculously, it can go all the way to 90% loss of function and get 3 times bigger than it is right now before you even know you have it. Now, early warning signs, this is you already, is there's a loss of energy, that they just don't have that pop anymore. You're having pain in the front, under the rib cage, or in the back, scapula. Weight gain, absolute obvious warning sign that fat is developed in the liver. Poor skin, especially very itchy skin in the extremities, hands, the feet, itchy scalp, itchy belly, constipated, backed up. bloated, not breaking down your food very well, and then especially in those that are high risk with an underactive thyroid, PCOS, or those that are insulin resistant. Now, I just made a video on insulin resistance, the number one reason and the number one thing to easily and simply lower your blood sugar level and beat insulin resistance. Check that one out. Those that are overweight, and then obviously those that are drinkers, but drinkers only make up 1 out of 25 cases of this. So it is much more driven by lifestyle. Now, there's two main types. There's metabolic, which is associated with fatty liver disease, and it's the breakdown of your metabolism is literally broken. You're not processing, especially this main meal I'm going to show you. Then there's alcohol related, which I said is only 1 out of 25 now. It used to be the primary thing we thought of. Conversely, what I'm going to show you in a second, this meal destroys, 1, it ruins the liver. Number 2, it ruins the colon. Colon disease is a general term for conditions that affect the colon, especially the large intestine area. And these conditions include inflammation of it, so it could be very irritable, could be backed up, could be too fast. There could be frequent infections in that area, or even all the way to the point of cancers. This usually is painful in that area, kind of right in front of your buckle on your pants, your button, right in that area, especially though on the lower left side is very frequent. There could be blood in the stool, could be hemorrhoids related to that externally or internally. Diarrhea, as I said. The abdomen itself can be swollen. Nausea is very common, constipation, frequent urination. And then we end up getting tests to try to find out if there's polyps or there's abnormalities in it. And I think a lot of people get that part wrong, which is a whole other training on colonoscopies and using anesthesia and it costing you $2,000 to $5,000. But the hospital makes a lot of money when you could have just done a fecal test, a FIT test, and almost seen the same thing. They're looking for polyps. It's an abnormal growth of tissue that can occur in the lining of the colon or the rectum. And they can vary in shape and size, and they can range from 1/4 inch to several inches in diameter. And this meal is one of the primary drivers you're about to see in a minute that creates those. The lifetime risk of developing those problems into a colorectal cancer is 1 in 23 men. Women, you're 1 in 25. It's one of the fastest growing forms of cancer. And it comes from the health of the colon, which is greatly influenced by this meal that so many people are making the mistake on. Doctors talk all about the key components that cause these things. Drinking alcohol, sugar, the keto craze over the last 10 years. And I'm not saying you should be eating too much sugar. There's something more important. Calorie counting. Just as long as I'm hitting my macros, nothing else matters. I'm just going to eat whatever gets me to my macro number. Can create a lot of toxicity. Even being aware of processed meats and nitrates. Maybe you've watched too many YouTube videos and knowing that those things can lead to an unhealthy colon or unhealthy liver. You might be in any of those categories doing some of those things, but one key component that they're all missing are free radicals. Oxidation of foods, especially our oils, creates rancid food, leading to rancid health. Rancidity is caused by 3 primary chemical processes. To try to keep this simple for you, there's oxidative rancidity, and that's just exposure to air. There are some oils and foods that you just expose them to air and they begin to go bad instantaneously. It results in the breakdown of that oil, of that fat, into an unsaturated fat and oftentimes trans fat. You've probably heard that one before because we even have governmental regulations that have to state if a food contains that kind of fat because it's so bad for you. I'm going to show you how your common oils that you're using are actually turning into this very quickly and why it matters so much. You're going to be shocked by the studies I'm going to show you. The second is hydraulic rancidity, where it's hydrolytic. Water reacts with the fats, with the triglycerides, releases the fatty acids. These humid conditions of shipping the oil in 105-degree heat, depending on where you're living, across the country, makes it very toxic. And then the final one is microbial, where there's actual interaction with microbes and the oils go rancid, improper storing. Now, those external factors, light, heat, air, they all accelerate this process so that storage and that shelf life matters so much. Oxidative stress from these rancid oils, they generate free radicals. They damage the cells and they damage the tissue. This oxidative stress contributes to every single one of the chronic diseases that we have currently, especially cardiovascular disease, especially cancer, and they really drive inflammation. Degraded oils promote inflammation, worsening conditions like your bowels. I can't wait to show you this study. Diabetes, arthritis. Could it be this meal with these components that's driving it? It's also going to create liver toxicity because rancid oils have to be detoxed because they are completely foreign in the body. and the liver has to do it. So it impairs the liver's ability to detoxify. It's like having gunk build up in your sink and your water can't flow through very well. Too much soap, too many emulsified things create that clog with the hair, and that's exactly what's happening in the liver. And then there's a nutritional loss, the degradation of essential fatty acids that are a part of every single cell in your body. You lose the nutritional value, which means you have unhealthy cells. So this is the incomplete or complete oxidation of fat or oil. Fats and oils have antioxidants to protect from oxidation, but if it has been exposed to light, exposed to oxygen, exposed to heat, then the antioxidants can be destroyed, causing the oil to break down and be rancid. It's especially happening to unsaturated fats. Saturated fats, way more stronger bonds. They don't typically turn rancid. They don't break down because they're much more preserved in the structure that they have, but it's these unsaturated fats. So which oil is worse? Well, here's key component number 1 to this meal that so many people are eating. I can't wait to get to number 2. Key component number 1, linoleic acid. Remember this. The more the oil has of linoleic acid, the more unstable it will be. The more linoleic acid it has, the more unstable to heat, humidity, microbes it will be. The more unstable, the more oxidation that occurs, the more rancidity in the body. The global production of these oils has skyrocketed over the last several years. Global production of vegetable oil, linoleic containing oils, from the early 1900s until just recently. You can look at palm, it has exploded, not as high in linoleic acid, but soybean, canola, sunflower, peanut, cottonseed, corn, very, very common oils. The use of them is growing almost like never seen before. The average American is pounding in this amount of oil. We're taking in so much of it on a daily basis. To get 5 tablespoons of corn oil, you need 98 ears of corn. To get 5 tablespoons of sunflower oil, you need 2,800 sunflower seeds. Grapeseed oil, 625 grapes. Rice bran oil, 40 cups of brown rice. It takes so much of this product that was not designed to be an oil. And we figured out these ways to mass produce. And what happens is you get an incredibly concentrated dose of the amount of linoleic acid. Check this out. Here is how much linoleic acid is happening inside these different types of oils. Now, at the top, I showed you we have palm oil. Very little linoleic acid, as well as olive and avocado. But as soon as we start to get to canola, which is touted as very healthy, much more. Peanut, rice bran, cottonseed, 50% plus. Soybean, corn, 50% plus. Sunflower, almost 70%. And grapeseed, 71%. The lower you go on here, the more delicate and the more probability that this oil is going rancid. It's a major problem as we look at the amount of linoleic acid we are consuming, because component number 1 is in so many foods. Everything on the inside of the grocery store nearly has one of those oils. And so we are now consuming 8 to 10% of all energy. 8 to 10% of how much we put into our system in linoleic acid on a daily basis. The usage of it has skyrocketed. So we've got to start understanding what can we use instead of this component, which I promised you. So the seed oils of canola, sunflower, corn, safflower, cottonseed, grapeseed, soy, rice bran, these are unstable, unsaturated, going to clog the liver, terrible for the colon. Wait till you see the study I'm about to show you in a minute. It gets worse. Olive, avocado, palm, coconut, lard, butter, ghee, these are going to be in the proper component. Your kids are regularly consuming these in their school lunches, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, full of them. So linoleic acid is key component number 1 of the meal that ruins your liver, your colon, and your arteries. But if you thought the seed oils themselves were bad, wait until you see the research on component number 2 of this meal. 95% of Americans are regularly eating it. It's worse than sugar. It causes more destruction 5 times faster than any other food, ruining more livers, more colons, arteries, waistlines, eyesight than any other meal. Look at this. This study I'm about to show you would not be done on humans. It would be entirely too inhumane to perform the study that I'm about to show you. It would be downright cruel For the sake of science, rats were used, and they unfortunately took the fall for this. Now, the Institutional Animal Ethical Committee approved the study, so it was overseen to try to be as ethical as possible, but they would never try to perform this on human beings. Here's the study. Rats were taken and fed normal diet, none of the linoleic acid containing oils. Second group was fed 2 different doses of unheated cooking oil. I'm talking about the yellow container, the one that's in the cupboard above the stove that you're grabbing and cooking with on a regular basis, or every restaurant that you go to has a giant vat of it. That's what they're using to cook all of these foods. They did that in 2 doses unheated and gave it to rats. Then they used a single heat of that oil and fed them food from heating the oil 1 time. Then they heated that same oil 3 separate times. This only went on for 4 weeks. This is the weight gain in grams over a 4-week period of time. You can see week by week how the rats gained a little bit of weight. You can see here they gained a little bit faster, especially in week 4, when it was a 0.1 milliliter dose. When they doubled their dose, they more than tripled their amount of weight gain. When they heated it, they started to gain weight faster than if it was just a single dose. And when they heated the oil 3 times, 5 times more weight gain for too much oil repeatedly heated. The effects of these 4 control groups on their weight, 5xing the amount of weight gain in 4 weeks because of the type of oil you selected and the fact that you heated it and then reheated it. So what makes this meal worse that we're discussing is the amount of oxidation that is beginning to happen and the impact that it's having on the body. Here's the peroxidase value, peroxide value, the oxidation levels that's happening when the oil is unheated, heated once, heated 3.5 times, 10 all the way to 35 on the oxidation level. Unheated versus 3 times heated. 3 to 3.5 times more oxidation, rancidity, clogging the body, causing plaque in the arteries, increasing stroke and heart attack risk when you heat the oil multiple times. Now, the next step that they did is then they took the rats post-study. They saw that their weight was going up, their peroxide and the oxidation in the oil was going up. There's a direct correlation. They started to do all their blood tests and they saw those were starting to go up. So they went and did biopsies of their tissue. And this is where it gets really interesting for you and I. They, under a microscope, and I did this in doctorate school, had to work with cadavers, I had to work with histology and look under the microscope and see these types of tissue. We'd look at colon tissue, we'd look at liver tissue. We need to be able to identify abnormalities. What you're seeing here from an untrained eye, on the left side is normal colon tissue. They were able to identify in the tissue that polyps were already beginning to form in the colon after 4 weeks. Most of them were adenomas. The muscle and the mucosal linings of the colon were thickening the layer of the cells. This is hypertrophy of the tissue. Also, there is a mucus and a thickening of the tissue. They looked at the rest of the digestive system and then they looked at the liver. In the liver, from left to right, they were seeing hypertrophy, swelling in the cells. There's swelling in the liver in 4 weeks. And the concerning part is the Kupffer cells, Kupffer. These are the white blood cells that are inside of your liver. These are macrophages, I should say, inside of your liver. They are the residents of the liver. And they saw that these Kupffer cells had abnormal cell growth and enlargement just from reusing oil, the wrong type. This and dozens of other studies that I could sit here and go through with you show that the more you reuse the oil, the more acidic it becomes. Does anyone under the sound of my voice need to be more acidic? The more carcinogenic we now understand these are becoming, and it increases your cholesterol levels. This, in my researched opinion, is the #1 food and meal ruining your liver, your joints, your colon, your arteries, your eyes, your energy, your waistline, and more. Sugar is important. I teach a lot about it, but this is pure toxicity for the system. So back to the meal. Fried foods. That isn't some new concept, but this is a very new way to look at why this is so bad. Because as they reuse those linoleic rich oils, peanut oils, canola, vegetables, soybean to fry your foods, you end up with an addiction to chicken nuggets, fried chicken, fries, any kind of potato chip, fried fish, onion rings, churros, tempura, donuts, breakfast, fried eggs, chicken wings, corn dogs, heck, even tofu. Repeatedly heated in the same batch that's probably been used all day long. And that's just 3 times heated. It gets worse when you keep going. And when you get the oil, the chicken fingers, the chicken nuggets for your kids, the donut that's on batch number 8, can you imagine the amount of oxidation going directly into your system? This is why that meal, any level of fast food, any level of fried food that is regularly being consumed, that Americans and people around the world are addicted to, is creating so much damage and ruining 2 major organs, the colon and the liver, proven by the histology, right, that I just showed you. If you are gonna cook in oil, use it once. Use coconut oil, avocado, ghee, butter, lard, or palm, and stay the heck away from fried foods. I know you gotta be a human, and I know we love some of these things, but I've made the decision recently of like, I'm just not doing it anymore. At least do it less. If you are addicted and you want to recover, if big food has got you addicted to the drive-through, to fried food, and you want to recover instead of waiting for it to be one of the 1 in 25s or increase your waistline or ruin your arteries, and then you have to be in the big pharma industry trying to get treatment for those, then you need to cleanse your liver. In fact, I have a whole free masterclass breaking down how to make it simple, where we attack those crap foods and the worst meals for your health, for your family, and for your future. The link for that is below. Rethink fried foods. And if you want to know how to save your liver quickly in a matter of 2 weeks, check out this next video. Make sure you register for the masterclass to go deep.